And we are live from the bunker, for better or worse. And that's the way it's going to go. We'll see if he joins. I'll ping him as well over here on the chat direct. I'm on, and hey, thanks for the heart, and have invited you. So he mentioned it being available about 8 a.m. his time out there in south of the border. And I think he might have been doing a border crossing today. So we'll find out about that. He's had a fair amount to say about that, and how easy it is to go back and forth for him. He's an American citizen, of course, and a white guy, so he probably has an easier time at the border than folks who are Mexican, or might be of a darker complexion. I don't know. We might talk about that. We can talk about just about anything. I've just got a new thing here. It's dot. Got a barcode on the back of it. I'll activate it a little later. It's a nice metal card that is the future of networking, they say. So I'm going to go a little modern with that. I'll have a hard stop at 9 a.m. Whether we get him or not, I don't really know. Gotta stop saying and one of the things that I like to do is, of course, share whatever happens to be crossing my mind or crossing my radar at the moment. And I was flipped open to page 208 in A Hitch in Time by Christopher Hitchens. Christopher Hitchens was my neighbor, and he's saying it's only 8 a.m. my time. Yep. And you asked 8 a.m. yesterday? 8 a.m. yesterday? Let's see. So, we'll just continue waiting. I've just texted him. He says it is only 8 a.m. my time. And do 9 a.m. Do you want to go live? He even meant 9 a.m. That's funny. Hi, Alexei Zaitsev. Good to have you joining us. Aaron the Lazy, Love BK. It's nice to have a lot of folks joining this morning. I know it's early for a lot of people. I'm letting him know that he can let me know when you are available next. Available next. So we will just cancel that invitation to the Everyday Junglist, and we'll just be live ourselves. Okay, so Debbie's joined. I don't know where you all are in the world, but we all are responsible for the world we're living in. I just was going back and forth with the bigger lie this morning. Jerry is his real name, and he lives here in D.C., and he's doing an update on the shutdown, the government shutdown. So we'll talk about that. Later in the day, yes, 12, and then got to pick up my wife. So I'm trying to communicate with the Everyday Junglist while being live with you guys. Apologies for that. I was going to read a little bit of this page 208 of Hitch in Time by Christopher Hitchens to you guys and talk a little bit more about the government shutdown and things that are going on here and now. I'm in the bunker here in Washington, D.C. So, yes, possibly. What time is that? So he wants to catch up on his way home to the U.S., out of the U.S., because he's crossing the border down there in like near San Diego in California. Everyday Junglist is. He's been a great guest, by the way. And if anybody out there who's listening wants to be a guest on Harrowings Live, you could be. That's not really a problem. Let's see. Ping me. I'm live now. Very good. He'll keep me posted, and we may have him later in the day. I don't know. I'm supposed to cut back a little bit in my broadcasting, I think, but we're going to talk about that too at noon today. I've got another hour and 6 minutes in which I can talk to you guys before I go on with my coach. Charlotte Del Signori, if you don't know her yet, she has a blog or Substack called Career Punks, and I like what she's doing, so I hired her to coach me for 4 months. And I'm hoping that's going to help Harrowings do better. You have lupus and require time with your health. The respect for you all is admired. Thank you. Thank you. And lupus is a tough one. My wife has autoimmune hepatitis and diagnosed about a month and a half into our marriage, and that was rough. She had to be, you know, diagnosed and took time. A biopsy of her liver had to be taken. She likes to say she's taking self-loathing to the cellular level, and I think that shows a good spirit. She's doing fine. Our marriage was in 2008, and by 2009, she had a brainstem stroke, which has paralyzed her on the left side of her body. So a lot of things happened in her life that we did not anticipate, but I said in sickness or in health, and I'm in it. My health is fairly robust. I've had a couple of scares, a couple of close calls. It's all a game of beat the reaper. And while we're in the game, we might as well participate in it. So that brings me back to what I've been talking about with the bigger lie. My friend Jerry, who is doing some shutdown newsletters about the government shutdown here. And, we all have a role to play, right? And we either participate or we don't. And we have our personal responsibility. I can't take responsibility for your actions. You are responsible for your actions. But every action has a ripple effect. And I talk about this a lot, about how every cent spent is a vote for the kind of world we are co-creating. Okay. So again, getting back to Hitchin time, Christopher Hitchens, my former neighbor, died in 2011, deeply missed. If you don't know who Christopher Hitchens was, you might know him from God Is Not Great. And bless my wife. Thank you so much. The autoimmune journey as a teenager. Yes, it's not an easy one when your own cells attack your body. Getting back to the Hitchin time, he says on this page I threw open just randomly, I didn't really lift a finger to stop the colonial bloodbath in Vietnam, which was, let it never be forgotten, prosecuted by liberal Democrats and robotically supported by an old labor government. I did give some blood for the Viet Cong at a Blackfriars monastery, which had been swept into enthusiasm by the mood of the time. Brother, your blood group is a rare AB. Do you think you might possibly make it 2 pints? No, was his answer. I invited Edward Mondlane, the soon-to-be assassinated leader of the rebels in Mozambique, to my rooms and helped organize a public meeting where he hailed the Vietnamese Revolution for presaging the defeat of Salazarism in both Africa and Portugal, which indeed it did. I undertook a little work in helping American draft resistors in Oxford, thereby earning my first but not last file held by creepy people nobody had voted for. I went out with the brush and the poster paint, and I took part in a good-sized punch-up outside the American Embassy in London, thus disproving, as a pamphlet of the time pointed out, Lady Bracknell's piercing words and the importance of being earnest. Fortunately, in England at any rate, education produces no effect whatsoever. If it did, it would prove a serious danger to the upper classes, and probably lead to acts of violence in Grosvenor Square. The My Lai massacre had taken place the day before. We weren't to know that, but it did seem very important to us that half a world away, the Vietnamese might get to hear about this riot and somehow, I don't know, take heart. Mike Rosen, who was arrested and roughed up along with one or two other people who might be embarrassed if I printed their names today, wrote a rather fine agitprop poem making this simple point. It was a beautiful spring day, and as one looked up from the big, heaving, horse-battered, clod-throwing tussle around the Roosevelt Memorial, one could see the reflection of binoculars and spyglasses as various members of the ruling class, foregathered on the roofs of North Audley Street, strove to catch the mood of the nation's supposedly insurgent youth. The editor of the Daily Telegraph the next morning published some sort of "I was there" piece in which he got all the slogans wrong, perhaps from listening through an ear trumpet. One of the fun things that year was to monitor the hopeless efforts of a rattled establishment to keep up. At Oxford, the authorities had a solemn discussion about covering the medieval cobbles with tarmac, lest there be a Nuit des Barricades, a night of the barricades, and in the PPE examination papers an anxious and with it question asked for elucidation of the sage Herbert Marcuse. That was a good for a chuckle, but it wasn't all doddering and quavering. Home Secretary Callahan, that red-faced beetle, knew his stern duty. All the Fleet Street rags the day after Grosvenor Square printed a leering pic of a girl demonstrator in the grip of several stout bobbies, her skirt round her waist, while one especially beefy constable administered a spanking. For all I know, this is one of many triggers that may have set Paul Johnson off. Tariq Ali was the moving spirit of the rally, and this book, which includes the spanking picture, brings it all back with exquisite vividness. And this says, 1968, Marching in the Streets by Tariq Ali and Susan Watkins. A footnote. This piece also mentions The Beginning of the End, France, May 1968 by Tom Nairn and Angelo Quattrorocchi, Verso 1998, and The Love Germ by Jill Neville, Verso 1998. So this essay that I was reading, and I could continue on for some time, it's on 1968, and I just dropped in on page 208, which is actually about acts of violence in Grosvenor Square. And he wrote it in 1998, which is just about the time that I had seen him. No, actually, it was earlier. It was 1997, the year earlier, that I saw Christopher Hitchens interviewing Salman Rushdie at University of Pittsburgh or close to it. Thanks for the hearts. I appreciate that. Appreciate the claps. The main reason that I'm here now, of course, is the Everyday Junglist did say he wanted to talk at 8 a.m., but he meant 9 a.m. And I can't do that at 9 a.m. because I am going to be talking one-on-one with my newly hired coach. Second meeting officially of 8, and we're going to get some work done. She's given me a pretty good and thorough assessment of my Substack writing, and I'm looking forward to that. It isn't necessarily necessary to tap the hearts continuously, by the way. You're going to do it anyway. It does creep me out a little. Okay, I'm going to cut it off because I don't like that. Thank you. I appreciate that. One of the things that we do when we support each other is we can really creep each other out. You know, if we go too far, there's a balance, right? And I've gone over the line myself in terms of just putting out tons of content. And so that's one of the things we're going to be talking about, curating that content, being a little bit more circumspect, and hopefully drawing a bigger crowd. Getting the message across. I mean, I posted a thing yesterday. It was called "What's the Point? What is the point?" And I see some things going back and forth. I always need to read it to lawyers. That's a masterpiece. Read Concerning the Bodyguard. Okay, I appreciate that. Good content there. And yeah, I know it's support for me, and I got it, but it's too much. Okay, Ashley, that's what I'm talking about. It's too much. And it's, like I said, it's creepy after a point for me. And that's just my perspective. I get that. So, again, I'm kind of interrupting myself to react to what's happening out there. I don't know. I just know how things seem to me, and I can share my perspective, and my perspective is limited and distorted, and it's by my own, thing. I had a somebody scheduled me to talk, and they scheduled me back in, like, August, and it was on Friday, and I forgot about it, but I saw it on my calendar, I put it in, and I thought, "Well, I'm gonna be at this event, so it's gonna be kinda like I'm gonna have to take myself away from that event to do it." And initially, I said, "I don't wanna do it," and then after all and the person said, "Well, you don't seem like the type of person who would forget something like that." I didn't like that very much. Um, but I rolled with it, and I basically said, "Well, my first reaction was to be conciliatory and to say, "Hey, um, I'll go ahead and do it." And I did that, and I actually got a heart back to it too that I would step away at 4 o'clock and go live. And then I tried to and found that it was canceled. And then obviously we'd had a disconnect. But then it was like, "Oh, well, I go back and do it again some other time." And I was like, no. That little line you used with me of like, you don't seem like somebody who would forget something like that is a little bit like, how dare you, you know? And so one of the things I do is I cull, the people that I'm talking with. And I think this is really important to recognize. There's I don't know what my own boundaries are until they're crossed. And when they are crossed, initially I might be conciliatory, and then I realize, hey, wait a second, that person really crossed a boundary with me. And it breaks my heart a little bit because I know it kind of impoverishes me a little bit when I cut people off, and I'm trying not to do it now. I'm trying not to cut people off cold, but I will, particularly when the boundary has been defined and they cross it anyway. Um, I don't know. I just know how things seem to me. And I could be wrong. And I'm trying to be balanced and fair, but not everybody is really balanced out there. Some people are really off their freaking rockers, and you got to be careful. I mean, one of the things that last time the everyday junglist and I were talking, he mentioned being doxxed. Are you all familiar with doxing? The idea that somebody had looked him up, and I'm pretty free with where I am and what's going on, and I could be doxed very easily, and I don't want to be doxed. This is where somebody puts out your information and, like, stalks you, like, comes to your house and shoots you. It can be what it ends up being in our society, and that's a real thing. It happens. People are just crazy out there. You gotta be really, really careful. So, I don't need one of the things too that gets me is a lot of us are very apt to apologize for things. I don't care about apologies. I care about actions. Actions are what matter. Each one of us, every action we make has an impact on everything else. It's the ripple effects. So when people tell me I'm sorry or that they are hurt or offended, I'm kind of like with Christopher Hitchens in that boat, where he said, if someone says I'm offended, I'm still waiting to find out what your point is. If they have been, if I've offered offense deliberately and hurtfully, and I'm sorry for it, the best thing I can do is amend my behavior, repair it if possible. What can I do to make it right? Maybe be silent. Maybe be absent from that person's life. Maybe set a strong barrier that means that I can't possibly offend the person again because, as far as I'm concerned, they no longer exist. That's I've done before, and it's kind of harsh. I certainly have had people m- say they are making amends. This is a big part of recovery, right? Is making amends for harms done, repairing damage. And a lot of people think they make amends by simply cleaning my side of the street. Doesn't matter whether it's received well or not. This is kind of a thing, right? Um, I know I'm bouncing from thing to thing, but there is a theme here, which is if I'm making an amend, I'm trying to make a repair to the relationship. I'm trying to say, I know I was wrong and I'm going to do things differently in the future. And I've been, someone has done me the courtesy of making me aware of how my behavior impacted them. And by doing that, they have given me a gift and I can respond appropriately. A lot of times the response is silence, absence, like I mentioned, where I can just say, okay, that's fine. But I had this guy years ago. I was telling a story about a guy who had died and been discovered after he bled out because he had fallen drunkenly in his own apartment, hit his head on the way down, and opened up something and ended up bleeding out. So my friend had gone over and identified the body. And then another guy was listening to me tell the story and said, well, if I ever die, I hope nobody says I don't know if he was really drunk at the time. And he misunderstood what I was saying, for one thing, but he what we call crosstalk in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous very strongly, knew he had done it, came up afterwards and said, I want to make amend to you for cross-talking you like that. However, and that's where he went wrong. And he said some other words that made me feel like this was not an amend at all. He felt he was cleaning his side of the street, but he wasn't. He was justifying his behavior. And he was making an amend at me, so to speak, weaponized, manner of speaking. And I said, I've never really liked you, and I'm going to do you a favor, and you can return it to me. And that is, I'm going to forget that you exist and treat you as though you don't. You may return the favor to me. And I pretty much have done that mostly, though he does go out of his way to fucking shake my hand sometimes. And I shake his hand back and pretend like I don't remember. But it doesn't mean that I don't remember. I remember it vividly. I will always remember it. So clinging to the scheme, I always never follow suit. Well, one of the things about that is I could have left it alone. I could have just smiled and done what I was said I would do, or even forgiven him. Because after all, people are fallible, and a lot of people don't know better. If they knew better, they'd do better. That's one of my favorite phrases. If I know better, I'd do better. I know we've got some other people who've joined us. I really appreciate the comments. I do appreciate, too, sort of the balance of not necessarily throwing hearts continuously throughout my talk, which I called out a little earlier. And I'm sorry if I was rude about that. But I'm not. That's a lie. To be honest, I think I'm doing people a favor by being straight with them and not sugarcoating things. I have a tendency to want to sugarcoat it a little bit because I know I can be harsh, but there you go. So this is live from the bunker. This is Harrowings. Harrowings churns up the surface of things. I don't know a lot. I'm sort of owning my ignorance. I'm trying to be in the world and, try to be the best Hal Gill I can muster. I'm getting that straight up from Wavy Gravy, who wrote some books in the past. I don't think I have one handy here. Sort of churning through my books a little bit. Ooh, The Museum of Early American Tools by Eric Sloan. That's a real great one. Oh yeah, I love this book. My father got it when I was 10 years old, November 1973, coming up on 11. It All Matters. This is Joseph Wooden's book. He inscribed it to me. Virginia Homeboy. One of these days I've got to get Victor, brother Joseph on. His brother Victor's a great bass player. Everything for nothing. Oh, Broken Open. How did I get this? Somebody mailed this to me. Oh, all right. I remember. Hazel and Betty Ford mailed this book, Broken Open, to me. By William Cope Moyers. Bill Moyers? See, I wonder if he's related to Bill Moyers. Anyway, Beyond the Robot. Got that here. I was thinking about Wavy Gravy, though, and I'm going to spin around, pull something of his off the shelf, something good for a change. This is autographed copy, who is to Roland, who put it up for sale, and this is for our children's children. Something good for a change. Yeah. And I'll just read a little bit of it because Wavy is the one who gave me that idea of trying to be the best Hal Gill I can muster. I don't know if y'all are still with me or not, but I'll read a little bit of it and then I'll go out and see off my wife. She's got to head into a event, to haircut at 1 o'clock. So you have some gravy on your eyes. This is Wavy Gravy, author, kids camp director, humanitarian, activist, pacifist, clown, and temple of accumulated error. I love that, and I'd forgotten it. I'm glad I pulled it off the shelf. Temple of accumulated error. I currently reside within these very words you're looking at right now. Just gaze directly at the page. Start to open your eyes really wide. Wider still. Just explode your eyeballs onto the page. See all the words at once. Let yourself begin to float in the light. Now, quick, touch my cape. Go, whoosh. And squeeze your eyes shut. See those bright spots on your eyelids? Now go for the light inside the center of your head. Head for the blinding flashes. Those are my major true life experiences reduced to a series of random slides awaiting reactualization in the carousel of my mind. So let's give the whole thing a flip or a spin. The beginning of the book has absolutely nothing to do with the chronology of my life, but is merely my own personal running order of the moment if I were Mr. Random. But don't let me intimidate you. Feel free to flip or spin. Now go whoosh and begin. Could we have the next slide, please? Toward the Fun. Toward the Fun is a spiritual pun on the sacred sentence of the Sufis, toward the one. It is also the motto of Wavy Gravy and Camp Winter Rainbow. That's me and the kids' camp I helped to found over 15 years ago, now 50 years ago. I am also a founder of the first Church of Fun, whose formal rites are practiced only on the 1st of April. One would think I'd have a pretty good bead on this fun stuff by now. One would think wrong. Wavy Gravy says, thinking gets in the way of thought. What the duck does that mean? Exactly, a pair of ducks. What that means is putting things together that don't make sense. Nonsense, exactly. But you must go beyond nonsense to achieve the Zen state I call no sense and enter the frontiers of fun. For instance, take the Nobody for President campaign slogan. If nobody wins, nobody loses. Did you feel the center of your head do a little flip-flop? I certainly did the first time I said it. I found that sensation both liberating and silly. I also found it funny, which Webster's Elementary Dictionary says is an adjective that causes laughter, and which further suggests that laughter is the sound of laughing, and laugh is a verb meaning to show amusement, mirth, and joy by smiling or chuckling, etc. Are we having fun yet? Are we having fun yet? What he reminded me of is a time when I was in Pittsburgh, 1997 again, coming back to 97. And I was spending time on Dalzell Place in a first floor apartment that was occupied by my then girlfriend. And she said, well, she was inviting me into her life and a significant, intimate way. And I said, I don't think it's too early to rush into things. My brain did a little flip-flop right then. It's always too early to rush into things. But the turn of phrase was nice. I enjoyed it, and we enjoyed each other for a period of about 8 months in some ways. And we had times when we did not enjoy each other, and eventually we got to the point where it was pretty clear that this was not appropriate for her and perhaps for me, and I needed to do something different. And so I did. I got sober. I went over to her place to pick up my stuff and said, I don't feel like killing myself anymore. I'm going to go and get sober. This is my first order of business. Actually, I conflated two different moments, but I did. The first time when I said I don't feel like killing myself anymore was actually August 2nd, 1989. I woke up next to this young lady and said, I don't feel like killing myself anymore. And that became my first wife and now my ex-wife. And, I don't talk a lot about that. I have written about it, and I was writing about it again recently. It's in a draft, and I have not published it, but I'm sure I've touched upon it in the past. What happened then that led me to be in Pittsburgh in 1997. And one thing leads to another, We do not know what the future holds. So keeping things in the now, very important. Remembering that every cent we spend is a vote for the kind of world we are co-creating. Remembering that we do have the power to change things if we're willing to take the actions. And we're responsible for our actions. We're also responsible for our inactions. Yesterday I went to Chipotle with my wife, and she had a chicken salad, and I had what did I have? I had a carnitas and fajitas in my salad, along with the different add-ons that you put onto it as you go down the line in Chipotle. It was really good, but then I went back and read in Douglas Hofstadter's I Am a Strange Loop. He's also the author of Gödel, Escher, Bach, if you want to twist your head around. And there's an article in there called Pig about a Raoul, I can't pronounce his name, Roald Dahl, the guy who wrote Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. And he had a story called Pig. And Hofstadter was talking about reading Pig and how then he became a vegetarian as a result. And just, how pigs are done in the slaughterhouse. He had toured a slaughterhouse as a youngster, or this character had. And to bring it to mind exactly how we come by the things of this world, I mean, Jane Goodall, having died just recently, sort of brings this all to bear. If you haven't seen her last words, please do. It's on Netflix. I want to amplify that signal through the noise. And, yeah. So this was to be a interview with the Everyday Junglist originally. It's now turned into this ramble about whatever. Also, it's shown my more irascible side. I do happen to just have a Camp One Rainbow slide here. They had a fundraiser recently, and they had a get-together in October, I think. 50th anniversary homecoming celebration, June 19th to 21st, live in Laytonville. And there you go. It's got Toward the Fun. So it's still going on 50 years later. If you don't know about Camp One Rainbow, I highly recommend learning about it. I do give to it on a regular basis. I try to send a kid to camp every year. I don't have kids of my own, so it's one way I can send those ripple effects out into the world. Not made of money by any stretch of the imagination, but I do try to make a little impact. And those ripple effects do extend. I think that's extremely important to recognize. Ishmael Hodges has joined. Welcome. It's good to have a good-sized crowd here, 18 of you. But I am wrapping up, and I do want to get on with other things. Another great thing I've stumbled upon, this book actually sort of called to me from Capitol Hill Books. It's called Beyond the Robot, Life and Works of Colin Wilson. If you haven't heard of it, please check it out. It's kind of an old book now. It was used as $8.50. Tarcher Press. Tarcher Penguin book. Yeah, Tarcher. They do a lot of esoteric stuff, right? And one of the people I follow, Mitch Horowitz, is big into it. So this one was published, looking for the publication date. Why does it not have to load? Oh, there it is. 2016. So it's not that old. But Colin Wilson's really a fascinating character, and Gary Lockman's just a great writer. So Gary, there's a little bit about Gary and who he is. He was the bassist for Blondie, as Gary Valentine, his stage name, and he then became a writer of esoteric stuff. He's sort of a historian, and really enjoying him. What does that say? Isn't he from Blondie? Yes, there you go. He was from Blondie. and also an author. So you can do all kinds of things with your life. You don't necessarily have to stick to one thing. Gary was a bassist, and I recently got this rather cheap bass just for fun, and actually it ends up being a pretty good instrument, um, in spite of being cheap. And I have fun with it. Um, Try to have fun quietly with it because I live in a condo. The bunker is in a building full of people, and they would object if I amplified it much, I would expect. What else could I got to say about all this? I don't know. I don't know much about anything except how things seem to me. Wavy Gravy and crew got some money for making this film. Skidoo as extras. The hog farm were extras in it. It stars Jackie Gleason and Carol Channing and a bunch of other people. And it's terrible. But it was Groucho Marx's last film. He played a gangster named God who was germophobic. And it, is just really, really interesting that by being extras, Wavy Gravy and crew, as the hog farm, got to be the security for Woodstock, which led to, that moment where Hugh Romney, what eventually going to be called Wavy Gravy, but not yet. In 1969, he gets up and says, "What we have in mind is breakfast in bed for 400,000." I don't know how many kids have gone through Gamper and a Rainbow since its inception, but kids and adults go through it. They have an adult weekend because Wavy says it's never too late to have a happy childhood. So I'm trying to spread the gravy a little bit there. It's a wonderful film. If you can get a hold of it, I would recommend it. It's called The Wavy Gravy Story, Camp, and it talks about Camp Rainbow in it. Its subtitle is Saint Misbehavin', which is what Wavy called himself when Bob Weir of the Grateful Dead called him a saint. And Saint Misbehavin'. Cute. Brilliant people. Rearranging my books. I'm nothing without my books. Nothing without people like Christopher Hitchens and his A Hitch in Time. I'd forgotten I bought this, actually, and I found a receipt in which it was listed as something I'd bought. And I was like, damn, I got to find that. He's got an article in here on Bill Clinton. I kind of recommend reading Hitchens and listening to Hitchens and, you know, reminding yourselves that people can think big thoughts. The Bigger Lie is joined. I'm glad I stayed on so long as that he was here because a big part of what I've been talking about is the shutdown. Notice that you're putting out there Bigger Lie. People should subscribe to you. People should pay attention to your newsletter. I think we've got to get a lot of things. Yeah, Hitch was the GOAT. He is missed. He lived right around the corner from me in the Wyoming. He had the penthouse up there, but he also was at the University of Pittsburgh a lot. And that's where I used to run, sort of cross him. I remember going to the Rosebud one night when they were having Christopher Hitchens' birthday party. The English department was largely there, but I was there dating a young lady from Ecuador and taking her out. And so I was running into a lot of my old professors and stuff. It was a lot of fun. And yes, Bigger Lie, you were welcome. We definitely need to get your word out there. You're doing a good job of providing a service on the shutdown. I did not know the Smithsonian closed yesterday. I was there on Saturday and went into the Freer galleries and ran into a lady who was coming out as all up and down the mall there were these tents and speakers set up every so often, and there was a stage sort of in the middle of the mall where there was this Jesus rally and lots of Israeli flags being distributed. And I don't know, the lady coming out of the Freer was looking at it like, what in the world is going on? Me, I'd just gotten back from the First Amendment rally down at the wharf. And you can read all about it, actually, in my post from last Saturday where I talk about, going down there. Or maybe it was Sunday. Maybe it was yesterday morning that I wrote this. Anyhow, I have a hard time keeping up with myself, much less anybody else. So we have a half an hour for me to sort of calm down, read over the feedback I got from my coach, and I'll be going on one-on-one with Charlotte Del Signore. I highly recommend you all check her out. She has a website called IfuckingHateMyJob.com. I love my job. This is my job. Harrowings, the passing show. Paid subscribers most appreciated. You become a member of the board of directors of the Harold B. Gill Foundation, LLC, which is me. And, that what I'm doing there is preserving and protecting the legacy of my late father, Harold B. Gill Jr. Happen to have a portrait of him here that he did. I don't know who was operating the camera exactly, but there he is, incognito. Um, my late father died at the age of 91 not too long ago. And he was a historian. And what he did was he went into the primary documentation he could find, count books, wills, inventories, all the records that people who are not so articulate leave behind so you could put flesh on the bones and really reanimate the people of the 18th century in Colonial Williamsburg. People are still using his research. I don't know if it's used as much as I'd like it to be used. I noticed that their website, for instance, talked about an incident at the Raleigh Tavern, but made no reference to the article he wrote about it. So things are being lost. I mean, that was just in the 90s. I think 95 is when he wrote the article on the incident at the Raleigh Tavern, which involved the first celebration of George Washington's birthday. George Washington would probably roll over in his grave if he saw how the government is conducting itself these days. But what do I know? I'm not sure. And things are unfolding. So thank you all for joining. I hope that this has helped spark some thought. I apologize for not enjoying so much the excessive attention I think that I was getting from one of you. But, that's the way it goes. I think I'm not doing anyone any favors if I don't tell people exactly how I feel about things. My wife says I very rarely have a sensation that I do not report out on. So with that, enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll be in touch out here.